Thanks for joining me for another episode of Meet the Masters of Region 6. This time we're heading down to Poplarville, Mississippi to talk to Master Lauren Pursley of Tigers Karate Center. All right, thank you for inviting me or letting me come and be a part of your class tonight.
It was a pleasure.
It absolutely was a pleasure. Thank you so much. I had a ton of fun. Something I noticed, just to kick things off, is how much growth there was in your kids class, not the tiny tigers or adults, but the one in between. It was a huge class. Have you seen like a boom in activity recently, or?
Well, we often find new students start at certain times of the year. We'll find around the new school year or maybe the first of the year. Quite often we'll have reference or referrals from one student, and so we've seen I think I've picked up maybe 3 or 4 students in the last couple of weeks in that group.
Well, it looked like they were all having a good time, and they were all super enthusiastic. So I love to see it. Excuse my limited knowledge, but I remember Master Strahan owning Strahan's Karate Center right here in Poplarville, and here you are operating Tigers Karate Center. So did you inherit the studio from Master Strahan? And if so, do you mind walking me through what that was like, what changes you had to make or what you decided to take over, things like that?
Okay. Well, I started with Master Strahan back in 2002. I had never done martial arts before, and I had an opportunity to do a free class with a friend of mine who's doing Taekwondo in Hattiesburg. And the first night I went there, it was sparring night. I didn't know anything about sparring, and so I was a little nervous, in an environment like that. I came home and I told my husband about it, and he said, well, there's a karate school here in Poplarville. Why don't you try that out? So that turned out to be Strahan's Karate Center. And I started training with him in 2002. In 5 years or so, I became a black belt. And I just kept coming. I just kept showing up and kept teaching and, went through the ranks and all of that. In 2018, I got invited to Master's Clinic. And at the time, Master Strahan had a career change going on in his life where he wasn't able to be at the studio very much. And so I basically just kind of took over operations for him so that he could come, but usually towards the end of classes. And at that point, I was pretty much managing it for him. By the time I successfully tested for my Sodon rank, we were already talking about him retiring from the business and me buying into it. And so finally in 2021, I was able to do that.
Well, fantastic. We're glad that you stuck to it because
yeah.
You're definitely a staple of Region 6 now. It's great to see. Speaking of which, you've kind of found yourself working security a lot for Region 6. If you've ever been to an event in Region 6, you can find Master Pursley in the security shirt following Quan Ching Nim around. So that being said, I know you can't tell me about the ins and outs of security, but how did you find yourself in that position?
Well, when you become a black belt, and particularly when you advance through the ranks, the association and Region 6, of course, wants you to find a kind of a niche that you're comfortable doing. And at first I was part of the scholarship committee. And then I wound up at the position of treasurer, and that didn't work. Our banking system in Mississippi was not jiving with the banking system in Alabama, and so I had to kind of give that up. And then I got involved with the graphics committee.
I remember that.
My husband and I did a lot of T-shirts prior to us kind of linking up and doing things with you and with your wife, and of course with Master Jones. And after a while, when Master Jones kind of took that over or started spearheading that, I found myself kind of wondering, well, what can I do? And at the time, I was working with the security with Mr. Adams, who was head of security. He was not able to continue in that path, and so Master Miller said, hey, are you interested in taking this over? So I said, well, maybe this is my niche, and so I jumped in there, and we have another black belt in our school, Miss Askew, that helps sometimes, and then I have another black belt candidate who also helps. He's a former police officer. And so, and then Miss Carter and in Muscle Shoals area, she also helps with that. And when I started going to Worlds, doing security, that's when I really kind of fell in love with the responsibility. It is a huge responsibility. I eventually became regional chair for it.
That's awesome. I'm glad to know that.
Keeping everybody safe.
Yeah.
Particularly Quantico.
I feel very safe with you around. So you and I are the only operating, I'm a club, but we're the only operating schools out of Mississippi,
Right.
For the WTSDA. Does being isolated ever become a hindrance for your students, or do you find it to be a strength?
Well, Poplarville is a small town. I think there's somewhere around 3,000 people in Poplarville proper and the surrounding area. And I'm lucky that I, bought into an existing studio that's been around for 25 plus years. Master Strahan got his start in the 90s in the suite right next to this one with Mr. Hollingsworth. Eventually, when he became a second degree black belt, he bought into that studio. So this town and this space has a long history. I'm teaching children of students of Master Strahan, which is a neat thing.
That is really cool.
Well, one of my black belts is the son of a former black belt who was a black belt at like 10 or 11 years old, and now his 14-year-old son is a black belt. So that's neat. It's kind of a legacy thing here. We have had other martial arts studios, spring up in the area, and of course people have a choice. I mean, Hattiesburg's a big city. They have a lot of different martial arts studios. Picayune down south of us also as well. So, yeah, you can feel a little isolated. I'm glad to kind of team up with you for things.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I think solidarity is really important. I would love to see other martial arts schools with the association in Mississippi, but it is what it is. I'm just I don't know how I got here, but here I am, and we're just happy to represent the association here in our town.
Yes, ma'am. So something I've noticed as we've been to clinics, black belt camps, you even invited me, which unfortunately I couldn't make it, but you do a lot of what you call Irish stick fighting. Mm-hmm. And how did you come to learn this?
Well, interestingly enough, I came to Irish stick because of a practitioner who is also in the association. Miss Lena Crane, who is a Sadan with the Alaska Tong Soo Do group, brought Irish stick as a elective, I guess, or a breakout session to Master's Clinic last year. And I had, as soon as I saw it on the schedule, I'm like, what is this? Irish stick, what is that? I started doing some research prior to the clinic so I could kind of be prepared for what she might be teaching. I even went out and bought a shillelagh, so I'd have it with me in my bag. Unfortunately, she didn't let me use it during the clinic. She's like, no, we're using eskrima sticks, which was kind of a bummer. But anyway, I got very interested in it and started researching and learning. And she was teaching a particular style called the Doyle system. There's the Antrim system and the Doyle system, and then there's a more modern combat shillelagh that's out there. And I first kind of started studying the combat shillelagh a little bit, and then on Facebook page I met some folks that were doing the Doyle system, and so I connected with them. And the next thing you know, I'm getting Zoom lessons from their number 2 guy in the world that teaches this from Ireland, which was kind of cool. And then I met a coach online who was in Florida, and he came and gave a seminar here back in December that was well received. We had 16 students, including Master Strahan, who came to try it. I had a lot of fun with it, and I recently ranked a level 1 in their system. There's level 1, 2, and 3, and then you can become a coach, and then you can become an instructor. And the reason I think I gravitated toward it is because it is so different. I mean, we've done a scream stick, we've done staff, and other kinds of stick sort of things. Master Strahan was pretty good at cane. He taught me some cane things. But an Irish stick is different, and it's based, this particular system is based on a left-handed pugilist system. So if you can imagine left-handed boxing with a stick in your hand, that's kind of the foundation for it. And I've been intrigued with European martial arts just because, you know, I have European ancestry, and I thought, well, this would be interesting to study. And as I told my students who have played with it a little bit, I said, you know, any unique way that you can pick up a stick and swing it in a way that you can use for self-defense, you know, is a bonus, because a stick is probably the most universal weapon you can think of. Plus, with a shillelagh, I mean, it's a walking stick. It is a mobility device. You can carry it virtually anywhere. And so, you know, I thought, well, maybe it'll be my thing, you know. We have masters that are really good at sword, masters that are really good at staff, you know, all kinds of weapons. I don't know a whole lot of Tong Soo Do practitioners that are studying Irish stick. Of course, Miss Crane is, but I thought, well, maybe this is something I can bring. You know, maybe I can finally contribute something. And I'm having a blast with it, and my students are too.
I only know one. I only know one, so I'll say that. I think any kind of weapon that is inconspicuous like that has a lot of utility. I know when I travel, I always take a cane with me.
Right.
Because no one thinks about anything. Like, it might get checked because, like, at security, because some people can, like, hide swords and stuff in cane.
Right.
But once they see it's just a cane, they're like, whatever, get on the plane, you know?
Right.
But, yeah, I've never had a problem carrying one, and I feel a lot more, not safe, that's not the word.
You have options.
Yeah, I feel a lot more at ease
Yeah.
when I have it with
Yeah,
me.
you have options with a cane or anything like that, any kind of mobility device. The thing you have to watch for with shillelaghs, in the old days, they used to drill a hole in the top and pour lead into them to make quite the cudgel. So, you know, if I were going to travel with shillelagh, I would travel with one that didn't have any kind of thing like that in it. But it's a kind of a conversation piece. It is unique versus an eskrima stick versus a cane. It can do things that those weapons can't. And, you know, like I said, I've told my students, I have one student who's young as 12 years old who's practicing Irish stick with our group. And I said, you know, you can pick up a toilet plunger and wield it like a shillelagh. You know, it's a weapon of opportunity at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of things outside of Tong Soo Do, Master Strahan used to teach a lot of Japanese staff on several occasions. Anytime I saw a clinic schedule with Japanese staff, Master Strahan, I was always there. I found it fascinating. And I still, like I was talking to your student earlier, I still remember bits and bobs of it. And I still practice what I remember, but it's been so long, you know, you can only remember so much. Right. But obviously, your students are carrying on the Japanese staff style forwards. Can you tell me how that became a part of the curriculum?
Well, we had, several years ago, we had some advanced students, black belts and blue belts, and I think we were looking to do something for a demo. And Master Strahan began researching different kind of staff drills, different kind of staff techniques, and he came upon the Japanese style. Master Strahan is really good with the staff. He's always been good with the staff. And sadly, I wish I was better at the staff. It's just big and it's tall, and I trip over it, and you know, I'm just awkward. I'm awkward with a lot of things, but the staff has always been kind of like my kryptonite. But he started teaching it, and our demo team kind of glommed onto it, and several of the students remembered it. And when I took over the studio, Mr. LaBeouf was very fond of that particular, the Japanese Bokato 1 and 2 that Master Strahan had taught. And he decided that he kind of wanted to specialize in it. And I said, you go for it. You can be the staff guy. And it's been good, particularly with he's my first instructor that I've gotten to this level, you know, that I've had an opportunity to work with. And he's a good natural teacher. He's good at it, and you know, I try not to showcase it to students that are just learning the staff because that can be confusing. It's a reverse grip. But for those that are comfortable enough with the staff that I'll take a shot at it. It gives them just a different perspective and a different way of twisting and twirling a staff that they don't get with a traditional Korean style.
Absolutely, and I love switching grips. I think that sometimes when it comes to weapons, we concrete ourselves within the forms, which of course the forms are the bases, and it's good to practice them over and over, but it's also good to take what you've learned from them and apply it in different ways. Right. And I think Japanese staff kind of helps us break that cycle. So I really enjoy seeing it, and I love seeing it pop up at clinics and stuff like that. Let's take this another way. When you're not here in the studio, what can you be found doing?
Well, I have a part-time job. Funnily enough, I work for Master Strahan's wife in an accounting department, which is weird because I'm not really good at math. But I'm an admin assistant, front desk in an electric company in Hattiesburg. Pays the bills and whatnot. My husband and I have had other business concerns and other, things that we've ventures and whatnot that we've been involved with. When we first came to Poplarville, we were here to start a fish farm, and that's the reason we moved here from Baton Rouge. And after 3 years, the fish farm kind of went belly up, and here we were. Eventually, we got jobs working in our fields. My background is in museum work. I worked 22, 23 years in museum work as a curator, registrar, working with exhibits and things like that. And my husband is a biologist, so he found work with the state doing that. But, and then karate kind of came into the picture, and that became a big part of what I do. Outside hobbies, I do historical reenacting, which is a lot of fun. I've been involved with the historical reenacting groups for many years. And I like to, particularly World War II, I like to portray, some of the heroes that, that basically paved the way for our freedoms. I grew up with World War II veterans that were part of my family. I greatly admired them, learned a lot from them. And so anytime I have an opportunity to go and do living history with like a museum or a historic site, it's a lot of fun to go out there and talk to the public about equipment and uniforms and how they were used and that sort of thing.
That's super cool. I love hearing about that. Next one's a simple question. Hyung, one steps or sparring?
Sparring.
Sparring?
Well, okay, back with the truck. When I first started in Tang Soo Do, I never did sports much as a kid, any kind of eye-hand coordination things. I did stuff outdoors and played and, rode my bike, and I had a horse and whatnot. But, eye-to-hand coordination, not so much. So when I started in Tang Soo Do and started doing forms, that was like my kryptonite. It exposed my awkwardness, I know intellectually what I'm supposed to be doing, but how do you get the left hand to do what the right hand's supposed to do, that kind of thing. So coming up through the ranks, it was not something that I enjoyed. One steps, self-defense, that was a little more rubber meets the road kind of stuff. And then when I got into sparring and found out that I was pretty good at it, that's what I just like, okay, this is what I want to do. And so we do try to focus at least 2 or 3 classes a month on sparring or sparring techniques so that our students will understand that, we're a punching and kicking art, As I've gone through the ranks, and particularly reaching, Sadan and the master level, I really understand what the forms are supposed to do for us. And so I tend to gravitate to students who have problems with that eye-hand coordination, that struggle with forms and things like that, the repetition and the memory of, which way do I go? And, because it happened to me, And so I'm a lot more patient with that, and of course in teaching, you know, I'm learning too. I have to kind of hone with that. So I did enjoy Royal High when I was a Samdan. That was my favorite. It's a short. You got to jump around. You've got those one-legged stances, and then of course that, you know, that spinning, you know, ending. So that's kind of my favorite one to perform. But I think on a color belt level, my favorite one to teach is Piano Nidan, because it's the first really different form. You know, the first 3 and then 4, you know, you're moving in the same way. Piano Nidan is, you know, you've got all kinds of things going on. So that's my favorite to teach. But if, you know, give me an option, I'm gonna teach you how to spar, how to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things I wanted to comment about that. It's kind of interesting because you said your first experience with martial arts was walking into a Taekwondo school and they wanted you to spar, and it was kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then now that you've been through the paces in Tang Soo Do, now you love sparring. So would you say that it gave, like, the training gave you the confidence, you know, that jumping you into sparring at first was kind of putting the carriage before the horse, and so after doing the hyung and the one steps and getting a little bit more confidence, you learned how to spar from there and actually enjoyed it?
Right. Now that's pretty much it. I remember when I first walked into Strahan's Karate Center, when then Mr. Strahan, he was a 3rd degree black belt at the time, I asked, hey, can I observe your classes? You know, okay, yeah, sure. And he had some great black belts and a really nice school, lots of activity going on. I was really impressed. And then I asked him, I said, now look, I said, do y'all spar? And he said, yes, we do. I said, oh, okay, well, I don't know about that. He said, well, wait a minute. He said, if you start classes with us, he said, you're not going to spar for a while until you understand how to defend yourself, how to punch, how to kick, how to block, all of that. And he says, and then when you do decide you want to spar, he says, I'm going to put you with a black belt who's going to teach you, not beat you, okay? And that gave me, okay, you know, the courage to be able to do that. Several months after I joined, my husband decided to join. And so for a while, he was a couple of ranks behind me. We kind of, you know, worked out together, and he and I would spar. And he's much taller than I am, and he's fast. He used to do Taekwondo when he was much younger. So, you know, feeling comfortable with the sparring partners that I had began to make me feel like, okay, I'm not going to get hurt doing this. This is okay. And when students are hesitant and they're like, I don't know if I want to do this, I'm like, hey, you know, it's okay. You know, this is, we're doing this safely. You know, it's not like the old days back in the 60s and 70s where you just beat the snot out of each other, you know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, you know, better health, better person, self-defense, right? It's not, I don't want to say barbaric, because it's not barbaric. It was just a different period. It was just things were done differently.
Yeah.
But it's definitely different.
Yeah.
So I remember when you became a master, it was whenever we promoted the most female masters at once of any region. And being a female master in the art, and an art that used to be so male dominated, speaking of 60s and 70s, being in an art that used to be so male dominated is quite a feat. What would you tell an aspiring female martial artist?
Well, I often, when we get a new student, particularly a female student, you know, I'll tell them, I said, you are so lucky. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, you know, you were born at a time where, you know, martial arts is open to, you know, family, you know, boys, girls, men, women, family. And I remember talking to Grandmaster Bodwin one time. I had an opportunity to do security with him, and we had a little chance to chat. And I was curious. I said, you know, when you opened your dojang, when you got out of the Air Force and you opened your dojang here in the States, I said, did you have any women, you know, students? He said, and I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, but it was like just a couple. And he said, and that was tough, because back then there were no divisions for women. If you wanted to compete, you competed against the boys. And I have a friend at work who's just a year younger than me. She did Taekwondo at age 16, which was unusual in New Orleans. And she said, yeah, I had to fight boys to do it, you know. So, you know, to me, it's a wonderful a testament to Grandmaster Shin that he took something that was rough and tumble, created a system that was safe, that like our one steps to be able to learn how to, distance and timing and all of that, and open it up to, whoever wanted to do it. One conversation I had with him, I said, Grandmaster Shin, I said, what do you see as the future of Tang Soo Do? He said, the children. He said, you start with them, boys, girls, teach them confidence, teach them to carry themselves, teach them that, respect, obedience, physical skills. That's a core, and that's something that I tell anyone who is interested, particularly women, okay, my tribe, okay, say, girls, let's prove that we can, be disciplined, learn techniques, and enjoy this martial art that is Tang Soo Do.
I always think it's interesting when I see a brother or sister walk in and the brother's signing up for class and the girl's like, this is a boys thing. It's like, no, it's not. We got plenty of women in here. We got plenty of girls. Come on in. And that's what, I love that it's so open to families now.
I've teased a couple of girls. We have a family, one girl does dance and the other girl does karate. She's and her dad does karate as well. And when the little girl come in doing dance, I said, dance can't save your life, but Tang Soo Do can. And she's like, what? And her sister just smiles. She's like, mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. What has been the most difficult aspect of your martial arts journey?
I'd say mastering self. When I went through the ranks, and after about 5 years or so, I tested for my first degree black belt. And I was like, I'm 45 years old and I'm a black belt. That is so cool. And my family was supportive. My parents were a little curious. Why are you doing this? But my husband was supportive. But friends and coworkers were less so. They were like, oh yeah, well, what do you have to do? Register your hands with the police department? Are you a lethal weapon? And you'd make jokes like that, or if any of them did a different kind of martial art, well, Tang Soo Do is no good. What you have to do is Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu or whatever. And finally, I was like, wow, this is such a huge accomplishment for me. Why isn't anyone else, happy for me, seemingly, Or even worse, had friends that were like, well, I'll just shoot you, and I'm like, why would you shoot me? I'm not going to hurt you,
No.
So I started thinking, I'm doing this for me, and at that point, even though I'd been training up through the ranks for Master Strahan and even starting to student teach a little bit for him, I decided, this is something I need to do for me. And at that point, it really kind of sunk in that any physical limitations that I had, any, awkwardness, I had to shed that. I had to grow into the rank. I didn't think that, okay, I've earned a black belt. No, I'm becoming a black belt. And the same for Idan, the same for Samdan, and then, this. I'm not a master. I'm becoming a master. And a lot of that is just a mental way of focusing on it, and taking the responsibility of course, a studio and all that involves the business end of it and all of that. But I think it's something you become. It's not something that you're born knowing how to do, but once you realize that it's who you've become, and particularly this is my 21st year of doing martial arts. Just conquering self mentally and growing into the rank.
Makes total sense. Martial arts outside of the World Tang Soo Do Association, just martial arts abroad, is very toxic. And with the internet being as popular as it is today with the young kids, it's gotten to a point to where if you want to share anything about yourself regarding martial arts, it's like almost putting a target on your head. and that stings because martial arts can be a very powerful and productive tool, especially for young people, but for young and old alike. And it gets tarnished by the toxicity of it. So I think, learning to put that aside and learning what you're doing it for and challenging yourself to, not let others tell you how you should feel about it and feeling about it for yourself is very powerful.
Yeah, and families have so many options, okay? Martial arts is kind of an elective. And there are other distractions, there are other kinds of sports. I learned from, being a student of Master Strahan's for so long that students are going to come and go, Economic circumstances are going to take them away. They're going to get married, move off, go to college, whatever. Even my black belt, Mr. LaBeouf, he's not going to stay in Poplarville forever, right? And I'm lucky to have him as long as I have. But for anybody that walks in that door, I want to give them, at least every class, a nugget of something that they're either going to remember, that may help them, may give them confidence, may give them some sense of, okay, this was a good day to be in martial arts. Because, they may not be back next week. They may not be back next month. For the ones that do stick it out, I'm layering, I'm polishing that raw rock that walks in and trying to help them shape and mold their character and their future. And if they stick with Tang Soo Do, it's a major impact on my life. I can't tell you what it's done for me. It's just, this is not on my bucket list of things that I was planning to do when I was like 12 or 14 years old. And yet here I am, doing it. And, I'm just hoping that anybody that walks in here can feel that we're trying to make a difference for them.
Absolutely. And I think that might tie into the final question I have for you, which is what sets Tiger's Karate Center apart from other dojos?
Well, I'm really blessed that I had an excellent teacher in Master Strahan. And he and I still talk frequently. He occasionally comes in and teaches. He did attend the Irish Stick Clinic that I had, which was funny because he'd never done it before, and within 10 minutes he was teaching one of my students how to do it. And I'm like, how do you do that? It's crazy. But he is a teacher's teacher, and he has been such a fixture in this community for so long that I'm trying to build that legacy, and it's as I said earlier, I find I'm teaching kids of his previous students. What sets us apart? We're going to do Tang Soo Do by the book. I'm not interested in starting an MMA fight club or anything like that. We're here to help you become a better person. Whether it's discipline, whether it's character, whether it's, you want to learn some self-defense, we're going to work with you and we're going to give you what you want, and we're going to do our best to, when you walk out of here, for you to want to come back the next time because you had a good experience.
Excellent answer. Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you and letting me come and participate and document. That's a good word.
It was great to have you here, Jonathan.
Absolutely,
really
absolutely. Thank you so much. And take it away, JB at home. Thank you for watching another episode of Meet the Masters of Region 6. We'll have episode 4 coming very soon. Thank you so much to Master Lauren Pursley for letting me come down, train with, and interview her. If you've been enjoying these, please be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next episode. Tang Soo!